Hey everybody, it's Audrey. Thanks for stopping by my channel. It's been a little while. Today I have a page with the September Hip Kit Club kit, and I am going to be using one of the cut files. It is kind of like a hexagon cut file, but it kind of reminded me of chicken wire when you look at the shape of it. And I'm going to do a little mixed media here on my background, so I am just using some white gesso on the background, just a piece of white cardstock, and up in the top right there you saw my Cricut going. Not my Cricut, I keep saying that, my silhouette. I had a Cricut for a long time, so when I switched to the silhouette, I could not stop saying Cricut. Anyway, it is a silhouette. It's cutting out that beautiful hexagon cut file, and I am going to try to match some of the papers that came in the kit this month with some of the colors that came in the kit, and some colors from some older kits as well. And there's a piece of paper in particular that you'll see here in a minute that has some purples and blues in it. So I decided to mix some purples and blues and kind of go a little bit bold and darker here with the navy. But I love how this navy and this purple blend together. It's so pretty. And like I said, when I pull out the piece of paper, you'll see how I was trying to mimic the kind of ombre pattern or ombre tone of the paper. So I'm going to use a couple teals too and do some splatters. And I'm kind of switching up here between the packaging technique and then doing some splatters. And if I feel like it's not covering well, or sometimes I feel like when I work with just the brush, like that it looks kind of fake. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like the brush strokes kind of look purposeful, and I want them to look more random. So I like when you use the packaging and you can just smush it on and it looks so much more random. Also, I wanted to add a few splatters of gold. And I'm obviously not waiting for anything to dry, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of gold splatters on here. So once that dried, I love how that looked. Here is the file I cut out, the kind of hexagon chicken wire cut file. So here's the thing. I want to use the actual hexagon shapes on this page. I thought about using the thinner part here that I'm pulling off as a stencil, but I actually want to use this piece of pattern paper. So I'm going to use this outline here just as a placeholder. And I am going to go back in and add these shapes back on, but they're glued onto my background paper. So I didn't glue down the kind of lacy part. I'm just gluing down the hexagon shapes. And I'm taking them off the mat exactly where they were on the piece of pattern paper so that I can get that that ombre look with how the paper itself flows. I was a little upset that I covered up that beautiful mixed media background. I just loved the colors in that. And then I thought maybe I should have done this paper first and then gone over it with the mixed media. That would have probably looked pretty cool too. But I'm happy with the way that this comes out. So it takes me a while to do that. I'm speeding it up super fast here because this was a little bit time consuming. So once the hexagon piece is dry, I carefully pulled that basically my template off to put those hexagon pieces on, and I like how that looks a lot. And again, I like the color change in the paper. I do decide to go back with a few colors and do some splatters over the top, and I think that helps bring the two together. I think if I did that, the pattern paper would just look way too separate from the background, so I kind of wanted them to fit together a little bit. Now you may have seen I have a photograph of my son holding one of our former chickens. That chicken is no longer with us thanks to a fox that we have in our neighborhood, but and part of my journaling actually is talking about how we had two Rhode Island red chickens, which one of them was in the picture, and I could never tell those two apart. I could tell all of our other chickens apart, but not those two, so that was either Copper or Kevin. I have no idea. But the kids love those chickens, and I felt so bad when that happened. But anyway, wanted to still document this cute moment. So I am going through the die cut pack and the chipboard sheet, and all of these things are from the Pinkfresh Studio collection, and I just pulled out a couple embellishments that I thought would go well with the photo and the page. And you can also see I took out a few other accent colors. So I have, of course, I have the purple and the navy in the background, and I brought out a few little orange bits. And I'm also using this 4x6 card as a background. And it kind of has like, it's hard to tell here, but it kind of has like a wood grain pattern to it. And I just love wood grain. So I thought that that would be a good contrast for the background. And I don't know if you could tell there for a minute, but for some reason my light bulb went out in my overhead light, and it just was, I guess, not screwed in tight enough or something, because it was just flickering, so that was kind of weird. So that's what was going on with the lights there for a second, but it was fine. So I thought maybe I wanted to frame that photo a little bit more and make it defined a little bit more, and you can see how putting that piece of navy pattern paper behind it just really gives it, just really makes it pop off the background. So that dark edge just adds a lot of contrast. These small pieces here were from the die cut collection, these other colored hexagons, and they had a white border around them, and I just trimmed them off, and they were actually almost the perfect size and perfect match for the hexagons that I cut from the silhouette. And I'm just finding a few other little bits. Sometimes I struggle when I have a background that I really like I really like the mixed media, I really like the hexagons, and then I go to do my embellishments. I feel like I might be adding too much and I don't want to over embellish. So I sometimes struggle with that, and I don't know. Sometimes I just got to accept the fact that less is more, but that's hard for me to do. I took some strips of washi tape. The washi comes in the kit this month too, and it's has a slightish like green tint to it, and like a moss green almost. So it's not really yellow, and it's a really it's a beautiful color. I mean, I love different shades of green, but it's a hard to define color. But I liked, again, the little accent that added. And I like using washi to put just on the edges of my photos, especially when the image in the photo doesn't go all the way to the edge of the photo. I think it is a good place to put washi or little labels or whatnot. So I decided to fussy cut out some of these rose gold leaves from one of this vellum paper. I think that's from the Crepe Paper Willow Lane collection. And I cut out a couple of them, and I played around with them for a little bit, and then I put them to the side, and I wasn't sold on them yet, but I do come back to those. And then when I was going through the papers again, this one from Amy Tan had that wood grain pattern, so I thought maybe I could add in a little bit more wood grain and maybe put a strip on the edge. But I just felt when I put that strip on either edge, it just kind of drew your eye away from the center of where all the hexagons were. So I didn't want that to happen, so I decided to ditch that strip. Going through this rub-on packet, this is from, I think, is it Pebbles? Gosh, I don't remember. I think it might be Pebbles, but there are these adorable tiny hearts in them, and they are kind of that orangey coral color. So I thought that they would just be cute to kind of scatter along in there, and they kind of get lost a little bit in with the splatters, but you can definitely see that they're little heart shapes. So I kind of like those little details. Okay, what next? I don't remember what I do next. I think maybe I am going to, oh yeah, bring in a little bit more orange. So this piece of pattern paper, it's kind of off to the left there. It has some drawn flowers, and some of them are colored in, and a few of them are very, very dark orange. Well, not a dark orange, but a brighter orange. And I just wanted to add a little bit more orange pop. So those did just the trick to add just a little bit more. I think I only put 3 on here, but it just brings enough of the orange back in. So I guess I am kind of satisfied with what I have so far. So I'm going to go start kind of adhering my layers together. And I work from the top down a lot once I get things organized in a certain way. So I glued my photo to that navy mat and then gluing my other little bits underneath to frame it. And you can see I cut out a lot of the excess paper behind the photo, and that for a couple reasons. Number one, I really liked that paper and I thought I might use some other little wood grain bits to punch shapes or something from. And number two, to help reduce some of the bulk behind the photo. Although I'm not really too concerned about the bulk. As you can probably tell if you watch my videos, I do a lot of dimensional things. I actually used some of those wood grain scraps to make a couple more hexagons. So I'm taking some of the hexagons I already have on the page, or actually maybe these ones I haven't used, and I'm just tracing them and cutting them out and adding those hexagons in. And I like the interest that that adds as well. And it kind of breaks up that purple and navy in the background a little bit. Going back for some more orange, I found these little tiny flowers. Those are on the piece of paper too, pattern paper. That piece of paper is from the Amy Tan collection. And these are much darker orange. And it's funny how, like when I look at it on the screen here, how I can really see that orange being picked up in the chicken's head, which is, you know, had a lot of red in it and that dark rusty brown. But I like how the orange kind of picks up that color in the chicken. Speaking of the chicken color, I'll come back to that because I try to bring that in as well. So I don't know what came over me, but I thought, you know what, maybe I want to outline all these hexagons because I don't know why. To soften the edges, there was a stark contrast between the edge of the hexagon and the white background. So I did go through every single hexagon and just outlined it with a white pen. And I do think it adds a little bit more and kind of softens those edges just a tiny bit. So I got rid of that die cut that said something about ordinary life, and I thought I would put these other stickers instead, these other thickers. And there is a little brown rub-on that said love this, and so I put love this chick. And that brown rub-on is like a perfect match of the color of the chicken. So I'm gonna use it. It brings in another really dark color to the page that I don't have on there yet, besides in the photo. But I'm glad it complements the chicken a little bit. And you can see I went back to those gold leaves and I added one at the top and at the bottom. And I like how they just kind of spray onto the page from the top and the bottom. Plus, I thought that those leaves, they didn't look just like leaves. They looked like, excuse me, a little bit like chicken feathers too. If you look really closely, each little leaf kind of looks like a feather shape. So I'm going back on and gluing everything on. I have sped this up super fast because for some reason I was gluing so slow and it just took me forever. So I'm going super fast here, gluing all the pieces down. I'm adding a couple more gold leaves underneath my cluster in the bottom right, just to kind of make that visual triangle with the gold leaves. I glue my thickers on. I decided to add a label sticker for the date. So I'm going to take a piece of one of the 3x4 cards here, or actually no, that's a piece of pattern paper, and stamp the border for the label. I love using label stickers. I don't know if you've ever noticed this from my pages, but I try to include a label sticker with the date on every single page that I do. I also try to include a heart on every page that I do somewhere. Some are more obvious than others, but I try to do that on every page. And then I took a couple phrases. I think it just says happy day. I used a kind of a brownish ink. So then I felt like I needed another little dark brown piece to kind of match along with that title. So you can see I put a little tiny heart over to the left, which I colored with ink, and that kind of creates those three elements with the brown. And just a couple more close-up views of some of the other embellishments and die cuts and vellum and chipboard and die cut hexagons that I outlined with a white pen, and some of the splatters as well. So that does it for today. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'll have another page with the Hip Kit Club kits soon. Stay scrappy, friends.